I never got to fight a Dalek, so might do that. Might go fight a Dalek.
Well, that's interesting. Could we at some point see the return of the 15th Doctor? And if so, how? How would that come about? I have 4 ideas, which I'm going to go through in this video, but I'd love to hear yours as well about how you envisage this thing that has been hinted at might come about. Hello, welcome to Culture Filter, I'm Phil. This is the channel where I like to talk about all the geeky pop culture that I like and consume, including an awful lot of Doctor Who. So if you do like Doctor Who, hit subscribe down below for news videos, lore videos, and reviews and all that sort of lovely stuff. Now let's talk about this interview. This was on the One Show the other day when Ncuti was on there promoting his latest theatre production. And yes, he was asked about his regrets about Doctor Who. And his main regret was that he had never faced the Daleks. Also, I agree, that was a deep shame. I was somebody who, at the time, liked the idea of resting the Daleks for a little bit, but I do not like the idea of a Doctor having had their era, never having faced the Daleks even once. So I share that regret on his behalf. But he added in this little thing at the end.
Might do that.
Which, at the very minimum, sounds like he is open to coming back at some point. Maybe sooner, maybe later. We'll talk about that. But it does leave us in a bit of a better position than maybe we were with, say, Christopher Eccleston, who also left the show earlier than he might have done. And the situation with that seemed a lot more sour. There was a chance this was going to go down the same route, but thankfully, on Ncuti's part at least, he seems up for the idea of returning to the role. And if he does, I'm sure he'll want to face the Daleks. So how might this come about? I've got 4 ideas that I want to put to you, and I want your opinions on them. Let me know how likely you think these are. Have you got your own ideas about how he might and when he might come back into the fold of playing the Doctor once again to face the Daleks? Let's start with the very short-term one. The one that will bring him back the soonest if it does happen. And I have speculated this before in previous videos, speculating on the future of the show and what's going on with Billie Piper's Doctor. I have speculated that there might be a situation where the Doctor's personality is trapped in the TARDIS. And the theory goes that the entity we see him regenerate into isn't a new incarnation of the Doctor, but is the TARDIS or Bad Wolf or something. But basically, the TARDIS and the Doctor have swapped places. So the Doctor's personality as 15 would be trapped in the TARDIS, whereas the TARDIS's personality, which we've previously seen in the episode The Doctor's Wife, is in a physical form once again, but has kind of hijacked the Doctor's physical presence. Now what this would allow is a kind of bridging thing into the next era. Something to tide us over with some specials until we get a potentially new launch on a new streamer. Now let's just say, for argument's sake, there are 2 specials. Maybe there's one this Christmas. Might not be likely now, but let's just, for argument's sake, say there is. And at least one next Christmas that are completely funded by the BBC and not in partnership with any streamer. Now, if you had 2 specials, what you could do is have the first one with almost no involvement from Ncuti right till the end, where we go through the episode still not knowing really what's going on with Billie Piper in the role. Is she the Doctor? Isn't she the Doctor? She kind of maybe goes about like she is the Doctor, but then the twist at the end is that we find out about the Doctor being trapped, and we can have him just in voice form for that instance. Then we can have another special where we really address that and we get the Doctor coming back, and that's where we would get the Daleks as well, so that he can regain his physical form and battle the Daleks. Maybe that happens right at the end, and so we get him kind of doing the final defeat of the Daleks, but Billie Piper is there to do the first half of the adventure. Or maybe there's a bit of a tussle where it's back and forth and he regains and then she regains and there's a bit of a struggle going on. If this is the case, I've also said in previous videos that this would be a great opportunity to wrap up all those Russell T Davies second era plot threads that are still outstanding that we kind of want. We want the boss wrapped up. We want the Susan stuff wrapped up. So this would be the perfect place to do that in one of these 2 specials. You could do some in one and some in the other, depending on how you want to do it. But having a story with the Daleks and Susan in would thematically work really well, because of course when the Doctor left her as the first Doctor on Earth, it was in the aftermath of the Dalek invasion of Earth and just after they'd had that adventure. So it would make sense to involve the Daleks in her story somehow. And then at the end of those two specials, he can regenerate properly and we can go off into a brand new era with another streamer, maybe another showrunner, who knows, and do a proper relaunch, an accessible one without anything to have to carry over from these last couple of years. Now the second option, and I think this is probably the least likely of all the ones that I've got on this list, is that actually maybe he's already in talks to return for another whole season. It is most likely that Ncuti chose to leave the role because of the uncertainty of what was going to happen and when they'd be filming again, and he didn't want to have to turn down other job opportunities to just hang around and wait to see what happened with Doctor Who. So maybe he's already in talks to return in the main role if it does return. Though I suspect this one really only works if Disney do a surprise renewal of their deal. I don't think this really works if it's going to a new streamer, because a new streamer will want a completely fresh start. But this is why I say it's the most unlikely. If Disney do a surprise renewal, this is at least a very low possibility, but everything is possible. It would certainly be a twist, and probably one most audiences wouldn't expect, so I suppose it has that going for it as something new for the show to do. It's kind of like an extreme version of David Tennant's fake-out regeneration, I guess. That ripped large. If they do this, I think they should go full in with the Daleks and create a whole season arc based solely around the Daleks. Obviously, you'd have little episodes in between which don't feature the Daleks, but I think they should feature in multiple episodes that sees them. Have them in the season opener, have them in a mid-season episode, and have them culminate their plan in the big season finale. And rather than it be a big mystery type story arc, I think something where we see their plan going through its stages, rather than it being a mystery, it's seeing something build up to something, and it's that kind of story arc. I think that would work really well and would give Ncuti a really great opportunity to really have some great Dalek stories in his era. Like I said, I don't think this is likely at all. This is not me talking about what is likely. This is me just talking about if this is the case, if what he says in this should be taken with any kind of, this interview, with any kind of substance whatsoever, these are some of the options. Not even all of them, just some of them. But let's pull this back and be a little bit more realistic for this next option, because he is probably just talking theoretically about the future rather than anything that's in any kind of negotiation at the moment. We know that Doctors return for multi-Doctor stories, for anniversary specials and etc. That has happened multiple times before in the past, and I'm sure it will happen again in the future, and maybe he's just putting his hat in the ring for saying, yeah, I would be up for that. I would be up for returning in a multi-Doctor story. And a future anniversary special, or even just a multi-Doctor episode for the sake of it, kind of like Power of the Doctor was. Yes, I know that was celebrating the 100 years of the BBC, but you know what I mean. You don't have to wait for anniversaries to do multi-Doctor specials. So maybe he's just putting his hat in the ring and saying, hey, I would be up for this. Probably as long as it involves the Daleks. So that he can tick those off of his list and go, I have faced the Daleks as the Doctor, even if it wasn't in his era. I think this is probably the most likely of what he meant. I mean, we can be hopeful about the rest, potentially. I mean, depending on your feelings about whether or not you want to go straight in with a fresh new start, or have these kind of bridging episodes or not. But I think, honestly, this is the most likely. And I'm another slightly more realistic one, but I think actually probably not what he meant is, my fourth option is that it could be Big Finish. Maybe he's already open to the fact that he might do some audio dramas with Big Finish. And maybe, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a long-term, like, doing loads of them like Tennant was during lockdown, or like Christopher Eccleston has been doing, or looks like Jodie Whittaker is now doing. I think Probably he might go, hey, I will make myself available to do a box set as long as it involves the Daleks, because my Doctor never got to face them on screen, so hey, let's face them in audio instead. Don't get me wrong, I would love to hear him on audio. I just don't think this is as satisfying as seeing him face the Daleks on the screen, and I think most people would agree with that. Most people would still feel there is something lacking in that. In the same way that Paul McGann never faced the Daleks on screen, even though he's had multiple audio adventures with them. It's still a shame. So there you go, there's 4 ideas of how this could come about if it does. What do you think? Have you got any other ideas of how Ncuti might return to the show? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know which of these you think is likely, and which of them you would want to see even. And for more on some of those ideas, particularly the ones around the bridging specials, click on screen for this video about the best way forward for Doctor Who.